Hello. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I am back from Las Vegas, and if you've been following me for a little while, you may know that last week, despite my best efforts at getting technology to support my live streaming intentions, I could not get myself together. And when I did get myself together to go live without this platform, I ended up having a number of trolls for the first time with me. So, anyway, what we learn when we pivot and try something new and develop a new skill set is that we're stronger than we think we are. And so we're back to talk about last week's topic, which is planning the sabbatical, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Crystal Harris, and I am a semi retired professor from social science. I taught at a regional university in south of Chicago for 17 years. I've taught a total of 20 years, but 17 at one institution where I retired from. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to pivot. And for me, this is my second pivot. I actually have a degree in engineering. I was a mechanical engineer that did project management work for 7 of the 10 years that I was in corporate America after my undergraduate degree, and never really intended to stay that long, but it was a lucrative opportunity. And as my family grew and my desire to spend more time with my family, I decided to pivot. So I would define myself now as a career strategist, an author, a speaker, a person who likes to create content about being resilient when it comes to career setbacks and uncertainties. And certainly, this is a good season as we look at what's going on in our country. If you're in the United States, and or if your job is tied to the United States or your company is in some way tied to the United States. And even in higher education, there has been sort of a popping of the bubble in that so many things that we took for granted that would always be the case or seemed in our lifetime would be the case are no longer in the case. So I have created this channel as well as another community called Lead and Liberate. It's a private membership community where people who are in career transition can get direct support from each other and from myself. And there's a series of content that's specifically designed for them. My vision is to have events and workshops for the private community starting in 2026. And so I'll be saying more about that probably when we get to second or third quarter of this year. And so tonight's topic is something really dear to my heart because it's something that I learned about probably later in my career that I should have. I never knew anybody who took a career break or a sabbatical. I know some people who were worn out and exhausted and had nervous breakdowns and left their job. And I knew people who got fired because they weren't performing because what they were being asked to do was ridiculous and unsustainable. And I wouldn't say fired. They were not retained is the way they call it, or downsized or restructured or something of that nature. So it's important for us to be really honest with ourselves about what our capacity is and to not try to give beyond our capacity and not give down to the scrubs. So this channel is for people of color, BIPOC people, primarily Black academics or Black professionals in higher education. But I've had so many people that have corporate or nonprofit careers. And I myself, as I said, was in corporate America for 10 years. So I'm sure a lot of my viewpoint or my perspective in terms of career coaching is informed by my 10 years in a STEM field in corporate America, in addition to, my experience in higher education, because everything we've ever done, right, has to do with who we are and how we see the world. So I'm here tonight basically to talk about my sabbatical. So once you decide that you need to take a sabbatical, and I've actually created other content or videos on that topic before today, I think it's called Why My Sabbatical Saved My Life. If I can, I'll go back and put a link to it. Um, so I really am like literally days away from my next sabbatical. So my first sabbatical was to Western Europe, and I talked about that in part one of this series, Plan My Sabbatical with Me. It doesn't say part one, but it is part one because it was a month ago. And in that video, I talked a lot about some of the things that I learned. I actually made an effort to watch some of that video before I prepared for today, so as not to be redundant. Um, but honestly, I didn't finish it. It was longer than I thought it was. It was longer than I presumed it would be. But what I do want to say is that what I want to talk about tonight is sort of like the specifics of like what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, what the plan is, knowing full well that there's still a great possibility that some things are going to change or shift as I have different experiences and different desires arise or different opportunities arise. So tonight we're going to get into the nitty gritty. It's also the first Wednesday in March, and normally I would do sort of an end of month review, but really my goals for February were heavily tied to not just growing this channel, but planning the sabbatical. And so I am giving you sort of like a 50% month in review because I'm actually going to go through everything I accomplished. I'm also going to tell you about a couple things that I still need to do that I haven't done. And actually, I just thought of another thing. I need to put that on here. I have my notes as usual. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm so excited to have you join us. Please stick around if you like this content, if this is inspiring to you in any way. I would really encourage you to become a subscriber and a supporter. And when you hit subscribe and join us live on Wednesdays when you can, or watch it on replay, you help YouTube know that this content should be shared with other people who are like yourself. And I also like, because my audience is small, to get to know people. I try really hard, at least twice in the live stream, to go to the comments. And actually, I'm going to do that right now because I want to make sure people can see me and you can hear me. Chat. Hey, the Chicago Ladies crew. Thank you so much for joining. Yeah, so as you all probably remember, because I live streamed from Chicago, what, maybe 2, 3 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to join the Exodus Summit Chicagoland crew, and that was really special. About, I want to say 10 of us. I think it was supposed to be 10, but it was more than 10. Was the reservation was for 10. It was a wonderful, wonderful occasion. So thank you guys for the support. So I'm going to get to my notes because, as you know, there's so many people who are. Thank you, Aneka. There's so many people who um, have live streams on Wednesday. I picked Wednesday, and I'm going to try to stay consistent. But I have some sojourners and soul sisters in this live streaming journey that also live stream on Wednesdays. And before I was live streaming at 5, there was no one at 6, and someone I know live streams at 7, and someone I know live streams some of the time at 8. So I'm trying really hard to kind of stay now, at least for the next month or two, in the 6 to 7 Eastern time slot and develop some consistency there. And as the audience grows, if I need to shift, of course, I'll shift again. But right now, I just thought there's no need of rushing to do it at 5. And also, people who were joining me on their way home from work and listening on their way home from work, it was at least 1 or 2 people who were doing that. I really wanted them to be safe and be home. So not that there's a lot of visuals. Now that I'm on the Riverstream platform, I need to learn how to upload the visuals and make sure I move them to my laptop before I can have them. So there's no visuals. It's just me talking. I do have the ability to share my screen, and if it seems appropriate, I will at the end share 2 resources with you by sharing my screen. Another skill for me to master and to practice tonight. So well, I would just want to run through what I accomplished, and then I'm going to go back and talk more specifically about different things. And feel free to put in the comments any questions that you have or that you want to hear more about. So these were the things I was supposed to do. Okay, again, not a good example of how to plan. If you watch my own training, I have a training on um, vision boarding for 2025 that I did in January. It's not available on YouTube, but it might be one day. So I had planned the two trips to South Central America. So I'm doing my Central America sabbatical in two parts because one of them is really medical tourism, it's dental tourism, and the second one is more cultural immersion, Spanish language learning. So the reason why I said that wasn't like a good framing of a goal is because it was too vague, and obviously I did something. I wasn't going to be able to leave if I didn't do something. So technically I met both of those. Another one that I was supposed to do that I didn't do was to research, narrow down cruise opportunities because I wanted to end this next quarter sabbatical. It was supposed to be April, May, June, but it turns out because of the dental work and their schedule, I needed to start it in March. So I'm leaving next Monday, March the 10th. And so that was the next big goal, which was to get all of the, deposits and forms completed. And so I had already selected in December of 2024 which dental clinic I was going to use. And I think I've talked about that before. If not, I can say something else about it if people are interested. So I had a communication. They assigned me a client coordinator. So I met with them, and that was very helpful. I kind of knew what I needed to do when it was time to do it, and then I didn't have to do anything until really last week. Another thing I had to do was make a decision about re-upping my subscription with tutors on Preply to decide what kind of tutoring I wanted to do. So at this juncture, I'm focusing on my listening and my speaking skills, and I've chosen two tutors. One is going to help me with the Mexico Spanish, and the other is going to help me with, she's Panamanian, is going to help me with the the Panamanian dialect, for lack of a better word, or Spanish. So that is done and that is complete. I needed to decide if I was taking a TEFL course in 2025. I went to a couple of webinars and I had it on the table because I thought it might be fun. It might not be stressful. Even though, if I'm honest, last quarter I was pretty clear that I did not want to ever teach online again. I was, I learned enough about myself to know that I should never say never, right? So, but I felt like it was highly unlikely that I was going to want to teach online anything ever again. But if I did want to teach something online, I wanted to be something that, with my own understanding of how to teach, how to communicate, pedagogical strategy, I would be able to have it be an easy lift of what I was tutoring. So I made the decision to take the TEFL class, and to research like where I was going to do it, what company, what city, what price point, because there's a lot out there that seems like it's Cadillac, and you're like, do I really need that? And there's a lot out of there that's like dollar store. You can buy clothes at the dollar store. Did you know that? The 125 store, right? So you can also buy clothes at Neiman Marcus for 100 times. And I'm not saying either one is bad. Everybody should have, there is a benefit to everyone having what they need at every price point. So no disrespect or judgment there. But what I will say is I needed to decide for me what was going to be easy, fun, accessible, and in the budget. So I did that. And I'll say more about that later. And then the next thing I wanted to do was to go ahead and book some excursions, because last time I waited until I got there to book excursions and I was so exhausted and overwhelmed. Every time I woke up and I should have looked for an excursion, like I had a full day and it was beautiful weather, I would just get overwhelmed and basically like do something simple, like go walk to the nearest park or go walk to the nearest beach, which, it's not, there's nothing wrong with that. But to have been in Spain for 2 whole months and have not done any excursions, like I did not a single one. I did go to some like free museums or like took walk-ins. I did that once or twice. That was okay. So I was a little bit naive, I think, about what it was going to take for me in terms of the psychological lift, the emotional lift, and the physical lift of trying to speak Spanish at my level every day, all day when I left the house. And so that was a real, I allowed that to be a barrier for myself. I'll put it that way. I had some experiences that I let that get in my head. And then the last thing is that I knew that I had a nest egg that I wanted to one day invest in real estate. And in order for that money to grow, I needed to teach myself or reteach myself. I used to invest in the stock market back when I had that corporate job I told you about in my 30s, but I never had any extra cash as a really speak of as a single parent and as a beginning faculty member and just basically as someone who teaches at sort of a state school. So I will be honest with you, I basically never really took advantage of any long-term strategies for wealth management. And so I wanted to start doing that now that I'm a young retiree and I want to make sure that I'm building smartly, not just for my business, but for multiple this business, but for multiple streams of income. So those were all the things that I wanted to do. So I kind of categorized them into A, B, and C. And so we may not go back and talk about all of them. So from a month end perspective, since today is March 5th, I will say that the training myself or getting involved and learning more about the stock market, I barely touched the surface on that. I could say if on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 is that I nailed it and knocked it out of the park, and 5 is I sort of kind of got started. I'm not even at a 5. I'm just barely at sort of kind of got started. So, and there's been a lot going on in the world right now where it would have been very advantageous if I had taught myself enough to decide what I was going to do with that money, right? Because stock market just crashed. So my intention is to move that goal all the way to the next quarter. I've done, just like I said, the bare minimum of taking a percentage of it and putting it into ETFs. But I really want to, once I get settled on the other side of my medical tourism, I'm going to put more energy into that. I think Spanish and healing is going to be the two priorities for the month of March. And then for the month of April, I think Spanish will end up taking a higher when I say workload or energy load. And so we're now looking at May for me to try to start doing something new. Um, the other thing that I didn't adequately do was the cruise. I did consume a lot of content. There's a lot of cruise content creators on YouTube in particular, but I feel like even that I got kind of like stuck in a rut watching the same people, but not like taking any notes, not like making any decisions, not like translating the tips they were giving me into practical things that I could do. I see I got some comments here. Do you think this sabbatical will go differently re-energy because you're more rested now? Like you'll be able to do more excursions? That's a great question. I highlighted that question. Yeah, I think, well, for a couple reasons. One, I haven't left until Monday. And to be honest with you, except for purchasing one more thing I need for next week and actually laying out my clothes and packing, I don't really have a lot to do between now and Monday. Continue to do the things I need to do on social media, but that's not a heavy lift, right? It's not like all day for 3 or 4 days. So I am actually planning to go. So I have booked one excursion while I'm in Panama. Black expats in Panama, they have 1 day excursions to Colon. I hope I'm saying that right. That sell out quickly. So when I saw they added one for April, I put a note in my calendar on March 1st when I have the money to go ahead and book it, and I did it yesterday. So I'm officially booked for my first excursion ever in visiting a new town. In all my years of travel, I've never been a person who wanted to pay somebody to drag me around town. I just have not. I will pay for like a guided tour in a museum if I get there and that's an option versus free. So, you give a donation, you get a guide. I mean, I've done that a number of times, especially in the UK. But I don't think that really counts because you're kind of still deciding on the spot. So I also think that I'm going to be moving around a lot less places. So I think that is going to also be a way of conserving my energy and allowing myself time. And I'm not trying to do a lot of excursions, but I would love to see something else in Costa Rica besides where I'm staying. Same thing in Panama City. I'm going to be, in the country of Panama. I will be there a total of 6 weeks. and I'm staying in one or two locations. I haven't decided. I'm thinking I generally am a budget traveler, but because my birthday, my 59th birthday, in fact, is going to take place while I'm in Panama, I want to actually do something special that week. And that something special might look like going outside of Panama City to stay someplace really nice. So we'll see. But that again is something I'll probably decide pretty soon and make some decisions on it. But I do expect, I mean, I think I've learned enough about myself to know that like I'm a an energy bunny when it comes to planning, but when it comes to being like in the moment to what I should do, I'm far more likely to say, I don't feel like doing that. So I also think weather is a big factor, and you can't know until right up before it if that is something that's going to work in your favor. I'm actually going to be in both areas, sort of on the shoulder season of rainy versus dry season. And that's because that's when it's affordable to go. But at the same time, it means that if I book an excursion and it's supposed to rain for 3 hours during the excursion, I'm probably not going to do that. So we'll see. So what I do want to do is by way of giving you a checklist, because as you know, I have a career break travel planning guide in my Stan store. It's 1995. I use that guide to book out all of, or to write down my transportation and my lodging. So now I have the airfare booked. In fact, today I upgraded and selected some seats. I declined to upgrade the entire fare because it was like an extra $150 per ticket per leg. I was like, that's crazy. They want you to pay extra $300. That makes no sense to me. So what I did decide based on having just flown back from Las Vegas last week, not last week, Saturday night to Sunday night, it was a 5 hour flight with one bag of pretzels. So, I'm looking at you, American Airlines. That's just craziness. Anyway, although most people were asleep. So, I mean, but which is why I think they could have done better than one bag of pretzels. But I say that to say that being in the back of the plane when you're tired and you've already been there 4 or 5 hours is not something I want to do. So I made the decision to pay $24 to sit in the middle of the plane versus the back of the plane. Because if you don't choose your own seat, that's all that's left, and that's where you end up. And so that is done. The lodging, the airfare, the where I'm getting picked up from the airport, all of the expenses associated with the lodging. I am, of course, going to have dental work, and they've only seen pictures of my mouth, right? I won't show you. I won't open my mouth. So they haven't actually done any x-rays or anything. So I have two appointments the first day that I'm there where they'll put out a treatment plan for the next 5 or 6 business days. And so I told them what I think I need based on prior dental visits, and they gave me a budget for that. And so I've prepared to spend up to that amount of money. I also, because I'm staying in a hotel that they recommend, going to be able to take advantage of their transportation. And so I won't have to pay for transportation to get back and forth to the dental appointments that I have every day. So that part is done. So I feel really happy about that. My Spanish tutoring starts tomorrow. I had a trial session with 3 tutors, decided to go with 2 tutors instead of one, because another thing that I learned in preparing for the last sabbatical is that it's very common for people to get busy and need time off, and like that's the week that you were going to like double down and do a lot of lessons, because sometimes I would have to reschedule because it would be on a travel day. So one of them will be on every Monday at 10 a.m. and one of them will be on every Thursday at 10 a.m. And so that gives me a chance to study, do homework, practice, listen to, the video from the session if they allow that. In the past, my instructors did allow me to record the session and listen to certain parts of the session so that I could remember the feedback that they would give me. So that part is done. So, I want to tell you about the TEFL registration. So, if you are a member of the Exodus Summit community, Facebook community, or the Stephanie Perry Rashida Dow communities, you know that two things that stop people from getting on the road for their sabbatical is, especially if they don't have a pension or they don't have a nest egg or they weren't born wealthy or they didn't stock away cash the whole 20, 30 years they've been working, is what else can you do to make money while you're gone if you can't, while you're looking for a remote job or to supplement your remote job. And one of them is teaching English because we're native English speakers. That's a very first world prized privileged skill to be able to teach English to other people. So I taught for 20 years, so it made sense that I should try that, right? The other thing that I've already done that I'm not doing in this sabbatical, but my first sabbatical was heavily reliant on, was house sitting. So I house sit 8 out of 11 weeks. And I wouldn't recommend you do that much house sitting. For me, that was too much. But I booked eight house sitters, 8 house sitting gigs, two of which were doubles. Like I went back to the same family at different times for different trips that they were taking. And so that was a good experience. I'm not talking about that because I won't be doing that in Central America. I had thought about it, but I decided, actually, I did apply initially when I first got back in November. I actually tried applying for 2 or 3 house sits, and I actually got an interview with one of them, but it just wasn't a good fit. So, so I'm not talking about house, but I highly recommend house sitting, particularly if you love animals. And there's so many people producing content on that. You know, if you want my opinion, I'm happy to give it if somebody asks a question, but I don't feel like I need to go in that lane. There's so much great content already available in the Exodus Summit community um, by other content creators. But I will say that Mocha Mazel was one person who I know really inspired me to think this is a good fit for me. When she did her TEFL certification course, there was someone else in the Exodus Summit community who created a video on their TEFL certification experience that did an in-person on-site class, sort of like I have chosen to do, not an online class, because you can do online classes too, part-time or full-time. I knew for me, if I didn't do it in person full time in 4 weeks, I wasn't going to finish because I don't have that, especially now that I'm retired, I don't have the desire to work that hard and to pay attention to that much for that long. I think it's 6 months or 8 months. I don't remember the part time online one. But if you're, putting your TEFL certification on top of a job so that you get the certificate or the certification so that you can start before you go and maybe stack extra cash, that's a smart move. I would highly recommend that. But for me, that wasn't going to work. I also wanted a chance to really do sort of an immersion experience and be in a Spanish speaking community and work on my Spanish. So by doing the class in Mexico, in Guadalajara, it really allows me to kill two birds with one um, stone. So I'm doing the certification course in Guadalajara. I have a very good friend who I met and hung out with in London, who is another full time retired traveler who has decided to move to Guadalajara. And so I have that little bit of community there, and she has other friends there that I'm sure I'll meet and get to know. So even if she's not there, I'll be there. So I'm going to go to Guadalajara a week early, and I will stay in Guadalajara probably a couple weeks after the class because at the moment I don't have anything booked or any intention of. I'm really just going to be trying to save money. As I mentioned, I'm turning 59, which means that next year I'll be turning 60, and I really want to do sort of like a luxury experience trip. And as a result of that, it means I need to curtail my spending in quarter 3 and quarter 4 of 2025. So, but as I give you more updates about my sabbatical, Guadalajara and what's going on there, because I also really want to go back to Playa del Carmen, which I've been to before and loved. I want to go back to Isla Mujeres, which is not far, it's off of Cancun. And I've never been to Merida or Mexico City, and I've never been to Los Cabos. So there's other, so I let me say that when I leave Guadalajara, I hope to have a clearer plan of what makes sense in terms of where I should go next inside Mexico on a bus that would be super affordable and where the lodging costs and the food costs would be low. So I'm going to stay in Mexico, either in the Guadalajara region. I don't know what that region is called. I just don't remember. Or I'll either go back to the Playa del Carmen region because I'm familiar with it and I loved it, but it is not one of the affordable areas of Mexico. So hopefully I'll come up with a better plan than going back there. Excuse me for just a second. I'm going to turn the heat down. It's really getting warm here. Mm-hmm. Oh, I didn't also get a chance, I don't know if you can see it, to tell you about my shirt. I'm wearing a shirt that I got in Montgomery from the legacy site. And I don't know, I think it looks like it's backwards here. But it says basically the opposite of poverty is not wealth. The opposite of poverty is justice. And so the Equal Justice Initiative is a wonderful experience for people who are looking to learn more and experience in an integrative way what our ancestors went through and some of the great resilience that came out of different, I would say, chapters of our history for 400 years. I would highly recommend the Legacy Museum in Montgomery, Alabama, and the Center for Peace and Justice is the other one. There's actually three sites. We only did two of them because we were there for the weekend. So this is a good time to really go back to last part one of the planning video and say that one of the things that book that I recommended, Career Break for Dummies, Katrina McGee, is the author, is that you should have a theme of what you want to get out of your sabbatical. So for me, the end of the first year, so June 30th will be really July. I left on July 7th, but really June, July is sort of the end of my first year sabbatical. I had at that time when I did the exercises in the book decided on 18 months, but knowing that at 12 months, I would make a decision if I was going to go back into the workforce at the end of the 18 months, that I would need 6 months ramp to do that. So I've made a decision that I'm not going back into the full-time workforce at the end of 18 months. At the earliest, it's going to probably be 2 years, if at all. And the reason for that is I feel like as I learn how to be strategic about the money and the experiences and my goals, I'm going to be able to be more resourceful than I knew how to be at the time that I set out. So I'm now looking at a minimum of 24 months of full-time travel. And part of that is because I'm not going to come back into the United States unless I need something for a short period of time. And I'm centering my time for the rest of this year in this hemisphere where a ticket round trip to Atlanta, where I'm currently based, is like $300, $400, $500. Don't get me wrong. If you're not paying attention, you could easily spend $500, $600, $700 round trip to any place in Central America. But I was very strategic, and so far I've been able to find tickets under $400. I think $400 is sort of like my new set point. I'm willing to spend up to $400, and I'm very, very happy with myself when I can beat that price. So I think one of my tickets was $375 round trip, and another one of my tickets was $325 round trip. So I have not purchased the ticket to Guadalajara yet because I don't know where I would be. I know when I need to be in Guadalajara, like the 21st of June, but I don't know if I'll be coming from Atlanta. Will I be coming from Miami? Will I be coming from Puerto Rico? Will I be coming from Central America? So I say all that to say that there'll be a part three of the final chapter of this sabbatical where that part is done. But the first two places are done. The other thing that I'm still working on that I haven't decided, if you looked at my thumbnail, is that I really want to go to Guadalajara is in my brain, and the part of my brain that doesn't like words that are similar. I don't know, some type of fancy dyslexia maybe. When words sound the same, I'm always using the wrong word. So Guatemala is the place in Central America that's just north and west of Belize. I don't have any desire to go to Belize because I've heard that it's filled with Americans. I could be wrong, and I may end up going there. But I now know, based on the research that I've done, that getting to Guatemala from Panama City is going to be expensive and complicated. For example, I went to Rome to Rio. This is one of the resources I was going to share with you all at the end when I screen share. There are supposedly three ways. There's you can fly, you can bus, you can drive. There's no way I would drive, right? That's dead. So for me, there's busing and flying. So the driving would have taken, if you were courageous and you would drive through three countries, including Honduras, that would be 27 hours. A bus would be 44 hours, and there'd be three places where you'd have to change buses also. So that can be dicey. And then you can fly there, one flight, but that flight could be anywhere from $170 to $500, and that's flying. So the other idea I had is maybe I could fly to some other city that's easier to get to Guatemala. So Panama City is obviously not a place that it's easy to get to Guatemala, but maybe I could fly to Mexico and then go back south, and that might, so two tickets, two different airlines, that might be an easier thing to do. So I did enough research to know that the plan A is not going to work, most likely, and that I need to come up with a plan B and a plan C. The other idea I had is maybe I could get there by water. Maybe I could fly somewhere and then take a cruise into Guatemala. I don't know if that's a thing in Guatemala, cruising. I know Panama City does have cruises, but I don't know if people are cruising on the, what is that, the Pacific Ocean side, the western side. And if you know that and you're watching, feel free to tell me in the comments what you would advise. But I've heard so many wonderful things about Guatemala, and I actually met someone from Guatemala when I was in Mexico in Playa del Carmen who was visiting family or friends. We ended up, I don't know, like in a restaurant waiting in line for a very, very long time and had an amazing experience chatting with her. She was an older woman, and I was like, I must go to Guatemala one day. And so I'm going to be close. I feel like this is my opportunity. I think 6 weeks is sufficient in Panama, and I could easily take that last week to 10 days in Guatemala. And everything I've seen online also makes it seem like a beautiful, peaceful place, which gets back to my original dream or goal of setting a theme for this. So my theme originally was thrive, and I mean that is still my theme for the year. Is that when you rest, you thrive? That's kind of been my moniker that I've used a lot right now in January, especially. Maybe not as much February. I got a little bit distracted with Black History Month, but I will say that I am reading this wonderful book. Let me see. Maybe it's right here. It is. So this woman did one of the workshops for Exodus Summit. Her name is Octavia Rahim, and it's called Pause, Rest, Be. So I have decided to call this phase of my sabbatical Pause, Rest, Heal, because I'm having medical tourism done. So I want healing in there too. So I feel like I also need to heal from the toxicity that's in the American social system right now. I am doing my best not to watch a lot of news, not to incur a lot of social media, but I'll be very honest with you. It's been difficult. And even when I hear things or see things that I know I need to know about because they impact me or people I care for, I find myself sort of in a rabbit hole down that way. So I am, if you can look, like maybe not quite halfway there. So section one is about endings, and for me, it reminded me, this first section, one of the reasons why it's important for me to apply this theme of pause, rest, and heal now is that if you're rushing and if you're running around doing all the things, you are not going to heal. So pausing is one step. And then after you pause, having a season where you're resting is also important. And then also having a season where you're really being intentional about what do I need to do to heal from what I'm experiencing, be that physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, relationally, or all of them. So I really want to be intentional every week about setting aside time. For me, pausing looks like resting, journaling, yoga, meditation by myself and in community. So being very intentional about setting aside time to write, to be alone, to be still, to be in the water, around the water, views of the water, meditating, really important. And I know people say rest doesn't have to be sleeping, but I'm a person who's really struggled with sleep actually since my son was born. He's 31 years old. I've had insomnia off again, on again for 31 years, and I still am doing much, much better. In fact, my insomnia was so bad that I actually was in a national clinical trial at a Research One hospital in Chicago for people who struggled with staying asleep. So I learned some things actually that were really helpful, and I felt like I was making progress. But I also felt like it was before the pandemic. When the pandemic happened, it was like I lost my natural mind. I just couldn't. Even though we were at home, basically doing nothing, I caught when I got COVID. I got sick, and one of the things I had for a long time was trouble breathing, respiratory, residual impact, whatever. There's a term for that, but it escapes me at the moment. Um, so I highly recommend this book. In fact, I love this book so much, even though, I mean, I say this by a lot of books you'll find, but I'm going to do some specific content based on some themes in this book that really resonated with me, particularly this one about, so I'll just go ahead and tell you now as a preview. It's Dark, Rest, Then Keep Going really hit me. And then this other one about rushing through the end. And then the third one, I'm saying them in reverse order, is in destruction, create a refuge. So, what does refuge look like? Particularly when I think about my target audience, who are people who are mid career, who might be feeling stuck, frustrated, exploited, unappreciated. Exploited might be too strong for many of you. But for some of you, it's too weak. So I know, I mean, I started out feeling frustrated and irritated. But by the time I decided to retire, I was absolutely done. Like I had to leave because if I stayed any longer, I was going to say or do something that I might regret. So I'm just being very honest with you. But the ability to learn how do you create a refuge for yourself is really, really powerful. And this book really helped me with that. So, or is helping me with that because I'm not done with it. So I strongly encourage you to pick this up. However, do not pick it up on Amazon. We are avoiding spending money with Amazon March 7th through the 14th. So if you're following, I think it's the People's Union, the People's Network. So they're one of the lead organizations that was, I mean, there's a number of organizations, obviously, the co-sponsoring, but they were one of the people groups, or um, I don't know the name of the person who founded it. But you can just put in economic boycott Amazon and it'll tell you the dates. So the Amazon boycott is March 7th through the 14th. So that is Friday and today's Wednesday. So if you order something today, it's going to come on Wednesday. So don't order. So there's so many amazing Black owned bookstores or other owned bookstores, independent bookstores, owned by anybody that you could purchase this book from. And I want to say it was like $15. Oh my God, so valuable. I mean, this is the kind of book, to be honest with you, that you could have on your nightstand that you could go back to once a year, once a quarter, and really find a whole different set of valuable content from because it sort of speaks to what you're going through at the time. Um, so I talked about dental tourism, which starts on Monday. My flight's on Monday. My first appointment's on Tuesday. So next Wednesday, I hope to go live because I won't yet be unable to talk well. That will happen on Thursday. Um, and then the following Wednesday is the one that could be dicey. I might have recorded content for that. We'll just see. And after that, I am coming back to the US for a week because I will have another Women in Business conference with Dr. Sade Adu. She's in Atlanta, so I couldn't not be here when she was in Atlanta. I'm also going to be packing up my things and putting them in storage for my next long leg. So that will be my last trip. So when I come back after the dental tourism, I got a couple things I need to do. Some of you who follow me on Instagram know that I went to get eyeglasses. Unfortunately, they're not going to get here before I leave. So that's another example of things that you have to think about when you're doing slow travel, long-term travel, um, and being really intentional about getting things done in a timely way. So, like, I was supposed to get the appointment done earlier so that the glasses could get here so that I could take them with me because I was worried about having my contacts in because, depending on where they give you a shot when you go to the dentist, it can impact your side of your eye. And so they might tell me to take the contacts out, and I feel some kind of way, like vulnerable when I can't see. Like, I guess maybe that's normal. I don't know. So fast forward to when I come back. So I have some other things like that that need to happen strategically during that break that I'm back here before I catch the plane to Panama. So I am excited. The sabbatical season starts on Monday. Let's see if I have any other questions or comments because it's 6:53. Not all the things. Thank you, Dr. Davia. I'm pretty sure that's Dr. Davia. It's the picture's too small. Thank you for your honest reflection and sharing about this leg of your journey. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys for listening. And stay tuned. Next week, I'm actually going to do a repeat. My intention is to do a repeat of a video that I did called Is Your Career Stuck on Neutral? Like what to do when you're really ready to go. And YouTube has been telling me that that video has performed really well. And I'll be honest with you, that video is, in my opinion, terrible. It's like I think it was my third or my fourth video before I was really trying to be consistent or investing in learning how to be better at this YouTube experience. So I'm going to rewatch it, as scared as I am to do so, take some notes and basically redo the same video and then take that one down. But the intent of the spirit of that video. So if you know someone who really is like literally, I have a friend, I don't want to say much. Every once in a while, she will text me and she will be like, "Girl, this could be my last day." She's done that a couple times. So she hasn't had her last day, but I get it. And I've been there. I have really been there. I've really been there. So that video was particularly for those people who are really on a wing and a prayer staying at their job and really need to go. I'm not going to title it quite that specific and severe, but in the content, I'm going to approach it from that perspective. Like, I just can't be here anymore. What can you do? So thank you all so much for joining. Oh, I know what I was going to do. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm going to try to share my screen. The first thing I want to share is the Rome to Rio. So if you're not familiar with Rome to Rio, this is one. Riverside wants to enter picture, allow every visit. Okay, I don't know if you guys can see it. Okay, here we go. So, yeah, I want to see if I do this. Will it go around? Okay, here we go. So what this does, I'm sorry, it's showing me picture in picture, which is throwing me off, is it tells you how to get from anywhere. So one of the ways to save money when you're budgeting for your travel is to go to a region, and then while you're in that region, see everything you want to see in that region. Well, not everything, but see more things while you're in that region. And so what I did earlier, just so you know, is I put PTY, which is Panama City, to see how could I get to I think it's Antigua, Antigua, Guatemala. And then you push see all the options. Oh, you know what I see? It's not showing you all. Oh, yeah, it is. Okay, it is. So it's showing all the different options. So remember, I was saying it's like, I think it said 159 to 535 before. And then it says you can drive, fly to El Salvador. Okay, so El Salvador was an option, fly, and then take a bus that's 7 hours. Actually, I didn't look at this before. So actually, there are some more options that might make more sense. It's not as impossible as I thought. So I'm gonna go back and see if it'll let me go back. Okay, so so I know that, so the reason I'm doing this is because after I'm in Panama City for 6 weeks, I want to go somewhere else in Central America. And if Guatemala doesn't make sense, where else could I go? So another possibility was El Salvador. El Salvador. And so now hopefully you can see this. I can't tell if the box that's telling me what's going on is so this is Panama City down here. And if you see, Guatemala is where I really want to go, but maybe El Salvador makes more sense. Although actually it doesn't make more sense because right now it's showing 221 on a plane and that says best. And the cheapest option is to go by bus. But what I'm trying to do is not be going through Nicaragua by land. So that is what really the problem is. So another option would be that I could go back to Mexico. I don't know if it's going to be expensive to go to, well, that doesn't make sense because that's too far. Let's see Cancun, Mexico. So basically, you play around with destinations. So basically, if I was going to spend money to go, if I wanted to spend $220, I'd probably make more sense to go to Cancun and then go from Cancun some other place. So I don't know what's going to actually happen, but I really wanted to share that with you all. So now I am going to stop sharing and I'm going to share with you because I've mentioned it before and I didn't know how to do it. The stand store. So for those of you who are content creators who are thinking about creating products to go along with your, or if you're academic looking for a side hustle, this is something that I just learned how to do and I love creating digital products on Canva. More to come when I have time. So my digital career break travel planner is here. So one of the things that I'm going to be doing, just so you know, is that I'm going to actually create a physical travel planner. And but I feel like I need to see it in print and play around with it a few times before I put it up to sell through I forget the name of the company, but anyway, there's a company that does sort of print on demand. That's what it's called. That's what the category is called. But you can also sign up for career coaching. There's actually something else on here. Um, and then the affirmation journal is also on here. And then there's resources that I actually do have free resources. I just haven't put them in the Stand store yet. And then the Stand store, if you want to start an account, they have some type of thing where if people join with Stand store from you, it's sort of like an affiliate link. So I would highly encourage that if you are interested to take advantage of that. I got to pop up. So now I am finally done, and it is 7 o'clock on the dot. Thank you so, so, so much for being with me tonight. Have a great rest of your week. Remember to pause, rest, and be. Bye.